A diversion here for a second. One of the quotes that I'm using on it, I'm talking about the notion of tracking. And in the movie Last of the Mohicans, Daniel Day-Lewis, Madeline Stowe, they have fallen in love. You'll see where I'm going with this idea in just a moment. They've fallen in love, but they've been captured and they're now being forcibly separated. And at the moment of separation, Daniel Day-Lewis has this speech. Says to Madeline Stowe, "You stay alive. If they don't kill you, they'll take you up north to the Huron lands. Submit, do you hear? You're strong. You survive. You stay alive no matter what occurs. I will find you. No matter how long it takes, no matter how far, I will find you." And it's just like this powerful moment. And of course he does. They get separated and their love brings them back together, and he tracks. He finds her eventually toward the end of the movie. And the point, though, is this notion, we have this notion in our minds that God is out there and we're following after these clues, and with more or less success, sometimes we find. And the part that we overlook to our detriment is that God is looking for us. God is seeking us out. The church is there for us during our Good Friday times in our life. And everybody has these Good Friday times. I have, you have, we all have, everybody has. And so it's just, you're not alone. Somebody is looking for you at the same time. And I find that just, I can like sit back and relax a little bit. Right. It's not all on me. God wants a relationship with me as much as the reciprocal, as much as I want a relationship with God.
Exactly. And I look at it as really that imagery, for some reason this year, either the stretching the arms on the cross or the Christ really embracing, so that even as we are in these really deepest and darkest times, and how to the degree we even fully feel that embrace or not, it is still there.
It's still there whether you're cognizant of it or not.
And I really like what you said about, or what Tim told you about the church carrying you through. Because we had folks, when I was in Belgium, who'd come out of the experience in Rwanda and those killings in the early 90s that were really horrible. And so I cannot pray anymore. And we'd say, we are praying on your behalf for all of this. Let us carry you through, however long that takes.
And
beautiful.
I'm thinking about, we talk about a funeral as being a service of death and resurrection too. And in many ways, what we've turned a funeral into is not so much about death and resurrection, but we've turned it into a service of celebration of life.
Right.
So we're not carrying people from death to life. We're not carrying them from grief to resurrection. It seems to me as if the church at times has succumbed to almost an entertainment kind of mentality, where the person has become more of a celebrity who died than the actual element of us carrying that person into life.
And I think that's really important, and I think a couple of things come to mind. One is why if we use our actual liturgy for our funerals in the Episcopal Church in the Book of Common Prayer, there isn't a eulogy. There's not this moment. I mean, you preach a homily which maybe engages where that person's life is intersected with the life of others and of God's relationship to us. But it really is more of that, if you allow it to be, that walk from death to life. And I think what you're saying is very important, and that we need to be more attentive in funerals, and that in Holy Week, one reason, and we were talking about this, that it is so important for people not just to go, it's wonderful to go to church at all, but not just to go on Palm Sunday, not just to go on Easter, but allow yourself to enter into say the Maundy Thursday, where, waiting with Jesus in Gethsemane, where there's the stripping of the altar, you remember the arrest and how devastating that must have felt. You could relate to that, whether it's in a relative's cancer diagnosis or some horrible car accident or something. If you cannot relate directly to that kind of an arrest,
right,
and then that death, and you need to allow yourself to live through some of the griefs of your own life through that week, but knowing that the church and Christ is carrying you with that.
A thought I'd like to add to that is that from our normal point of view of our daily lives, we see a person born, they live their life, and then they die. From a broader perspective, and I would venture a divine perspective or an outer space kind of perspective looking down upon the earth, it's exactly the opposite. You don't have a life and then it dies. Every extinction is followed by more. It's always a death followed by more life. You have a niche that is created, it's immediately filled.
Right.
Something happens to wipe out that niche, it's filled again. It's just life following death rather than the other way around. Our
Yes.
limited perspective is of an individual that has that born, live, then die. But it's not the broader perspective. The broader perspective is life and more life and more life.
And more life and more life. And that even as individuals, though it's something I still wrestle with, but we continue on.
And so that's a kind of
And
thing to
life.
tuck away in the back of your
Yeah.
mind. You tell that to somebody who's grieving and it's meaningless.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But if they're not, they can tuck it in the back of their mind and know that that's there in the grieving process.
It's like that little
Yeah.
seed of that little shoot that's coming up, and
Yeah.
they'll eventually see
Yeah.
the full plant blooming and living.
And Resurrection Easter is just simply an annual reminder. Oh yes, we tend to forget, especially after a long winter. We tend to forget. We think death, and it's like nothing's going to come up through this frozen ground. And frozen ground being a metaphor for aspects of our lives. But
Definitely.
it does.
And it does.
Every time.
And
Again and again.
even when you have a March snowstorm that happens late, you
happens
get buried with
late.
30 inches of snow, and
Spring still comes.
and you're sitting there like cabin fever, and you're looking at your wife. Can we get out of the house yet?
Yes, which is
36.
also nice why it's great to celebrate it in the Northern Hemisphere and the
Yeah.
South too, so that you
Yeah.
know you're going into spring and new life.
Yeah, and you hope those tulips that had started to come up in February because we had such a warm spell.
Right,
Yeah.
come back.
And come back to greet us
Because they
again.
can't go back real
They
quick.
can't go-
No, they
I mean,
can't. And
you
we
know,
have
you say
seen
it goes
in
from
our
life to life to life. They don't-
Right.
You haven't talked about the cherries or the apples. That we might have problems
That's
with.
when you take the longer view, not
Yeah.
just one season. Yeah.
Well, it's been a real pleasure having Art and Elizabeth on with me on Encounter. Thank you for talking about your Easter sermons.
It's been a pleasure to be here in this conversation.
And given the tenor of our conversation, I'm sure your congregations are going to be really touched by your sermons on Sunday. So thanks for being on, and thank you all for watching us reminisce and talk about theology this morning and about resurrections. I hope that if you are needing to experience resurrection in your life, you will find it this Sunday. If not this Sunday, then sometime. But whatever you feel, be good and gentle with yourself.